Hey guys, welcome back. So in the spirit of getting more Miles Morales on this channel, I want to get into Miles Morales Spider-Man from 2018. And with doing so, hopefully by holiday season, when the new game drops, we'll have plenty to talk about and hopefully some in-game Easter eggs as well, that expand beyond it being a continuation of just what we'd seen on Spider-Man on PS4, but we'll see. So if you're new here to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so getting into Miles Morales Spider-Man, which from the beginning is a very good start for new readers, because the way the series picks up is essentially a journal from Miles Morales, which turns out to be useful in a couple ways, with him narrating current events, but also giving a recap on past encounters. And really this whole journal thing, it wasn't something he just got up one day and was like, you know what, I'm gonna write a journal. But rather it was a project that he was given in his creative writing class, which was a class that he only took because his friend Judge was in that class, and he also figured that it would just be an easy A. But with Miles starting this journal, it at least helped him with clearing his thoughts, and it was an open and creative space for him to share all of his secrets, which could also be a terrible idea if you were bit by a radioactive spider at the age of 13. But in the case of new readers who may not be as familiar with his beginnings in the 1610 universe, and it summarizes it pretty nicely, from him getting his powers to the Spider-Man of the 1610 universe teaching him the ropes, prior to his death of course, but on top of having the same abilities as Peter Parker, he can also camouflage to his surroundings, seeming to be invisible, in addition to his Venom blast, which can be highly powerful, but it takes a lot out of him. But as far as his secrets, which we know run in his family, with his father Jefferson Davis, who's an ex-S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, who had known Miles' secret for quite some time, and he had worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to keep an eye on Miles. And then you have his uncle Aaron Davis, who's also known as the Prowler, which, for the record, his Iron Spider suit better be in that game. And I'ma need this from one of the skins, cause I'd imagine like for Miles Morales, there's not a lot of different suits really to go from, which means there probably won't be a lot of skins to unlock, but if there are a few, then this needs to be one. And if not, just give us some Prowler missions, cause I'll definitely settle for that any day. But one of the things that's different now from what we had seen with Miles in the 1610 universe, it's that now both of his parents know that he's Spider-Man, which was something like prior to 2015 Secret Wars, his mother had just never knew. But after the Black Panther and Reed Richards had fixed everything, now here in the main universe, both of his parents know his identity, and Miles admits that it's more of a relief than he thought it would ever be. Even with it being contrary to the advice from Peter Parker from the 1610, who had told Miles not to tell his parents. But even still, Miles finds it much easier with them knowing and him being able to share the burden with them. But also at this time, Miles attends Brooklyn Visions Academy, where he's on campus during the week, and on the weekends he goes to see his parents. And as far as his dorm mates, you have Judge, who's an aspiring poet, and then you also have Ganke Lee, who's also known as Ned, and he's been Miles' friend since he was 3. But with Ganke being one of the few people who know Miles' secret identity, and really if I remember correctly, he was like one of the first people that Miles told, with him initially encouraging Miles to use his powers and be a superhero like the Spider-Man they had known in their universe. But also with knowing this, Ganke has pretty much been his man in the chair, and helping Miles how and where he can to the capacity that he can, which is very much needed with Miles being a full-time student, part-time superhero, which not only takes a toll on his personal life, but it literally gives him no time to get rest, which at times can affect him in either area, whether it's school or being a superhero. But fortunate enough for Miles, his first period teacher is Mr. Sumida, who's his creative writing teacher, and fortunately he tolerates Miles' lack of punctuality. But also amongst Miles' friends, there's also Barbara, and she's like this friend slash love interest, and it's like they both have feelings for each other and everybody else knows as well. But of course Miles doesn't let her in too close in order to protect his secret identity. And so Barbara also has a little cousin named Eduardo, who's 10 years old but he thinks he's 20, and I think we all know a little kid like that, walking around with a grown haircut, thinking he's Cristiano Ronaldo, but at the same time he smell like YSL and Similac. But you can't tell him that, cause in his mind he grown. But overall, Eduardo, he's a good kid, but he's dealing with a couple of issues like his father being deported, so as of now, it's really just him and his mother, but they're also having this issue of getting him his citizenship, with there being this issue of many immigrant children being detained and separated from their families altogether. And for Miles, like he admits, it's issues like these to where he doesn't know exactly what he should do, because at this point he's been Spider-Man for a while, so he has the powers part down. But he also admits like when it comes to these more personal situations that he doesn't know exactly how to apply his power to handle his responsibility, or even what his responsibility may be in relation to that. But on the other hand, when he sees a bunch of dudes breaking through a brick wall and stealing a bunch of mysterious technology, then in that case it's a little bit easier to make the call on what to do. But when he gets in closer to see who these guys are, and I guess they look taller from a distance, but when he gets in closer and he sees that they're not that tall, his first thought is that these are probably machines, and also because they're very passive and unresponsive to him. And when he goes in to stop them and take a closer look, he's immediately met by the Rhino, who aside from the initial hit, he actually tries to talk to Miles, and really for the most part tell him that he's not a part of what's going on, and rather than explain himself to him, he just wants Miles to get out the way. But in a pure form of miscommunication, with him telling Miles to pretty much go home and play Sega, which for Rhino is pretty much showing his age because Sega has only been like software since Dreamcast. And to me it's kind of ironic because PlayStation put Sega out of business, like as far as consoles, and it's been that way since like PlayStation 2 or 3. And with Rhino making the Sega reference, it really showed his age in this moment. But even with mentioning that, it does remind me that Sega is supposedly have this big announcement coming soon. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I hope it's not another console because, you know, Xbox, PlayStation, and a Sega, I can't do it. It's too much. Hopefully they just partner with Xbox and give him more games because they need it. But either way, Rhino gets tired of talking and he pretty much tells Miles like, if it's the smashing criminal that you want, then here you go. And you can tell there's a bit of taunting from Rhino, which Miles gets a lot, at least when he meets up with someone who's not used to going up against him, because there's a bunch of the trash talk like you're not as good as the quote real Spider-Man. But on the other hand, it also plays into Miles' favor because when he faces a new villain, or at least a villain that's new to him, they are completely unaware of his cloaking ability or his Venom blast. But with Miles settling this encounter and coming to the conclusion that Rhino was actually here looking for someone and that he was following these supposed little drones in hopes for them to lead him back to the person he was looking for, it's then that they both realize that they're getting away, so immediately Miles stops them in their tracks. And when he does, once again, they don't try to combat him or even stop him from getting in their way, and because of this he gets the opportunity to look under one of their helmets, and when he does, lo and behold, it's Eduardo, Barbara's younger cousin. But when Miles sees him here, it's almost as if his mind is blank and Eduardo's being controlled by someone else. And after Miles sees his face, Eduardo just shocks him and him and the others just get away. And so when Miles wakes up, first and foremost, he just thanks Rhino, who's still standing there, which initially was kind of weird that he was still there, just kind of looking over him. But initially Miles just thanks him like, hey, thanks man for not killing me in my sleep, because you know, that's what a villain would do, you know? But it's here where they have a talk and Rhino expresses that he's looking for his girl's little niece, and as far as his girl, it's more so his ex-wife, so it's not like Rhino's out here getting Tinder matches on a regular. But with Miles seeing this mind-controlled Eduardo and Rhino expressing that he's looking for a missing kid too, it's here that they quickly realize that there's much more going on here, and moving forward they decide to work together. But with it being early morning at this point and Miles needing to head to school, they then decide to just meet up here later on that night while the Rhino sees what he can find during the day. And of course for Miles, getting back to school with absolutely no sleep is a problem. But while he's there later in the day, he finds out that Barbara didn't come to school, and mainly because she's dealing with family issues. And when Miles hears this, he tries to cut class to go and check on her, but when he does, he's caught by the vice principal, who looks just like the dude who beat Michael Jordan in the coin toss. And I mean, it could be the same dude, might be a shared universe. I mean, you're gonna have to ask Madam Web about that. But of course, because of this, Miles then has to wait till after school to go check on Barbara, and as you would have guessed, when he gets there, she then lets him know that Eduardo's missing. And at this point, since Barbara doesn't know Miles' secret, it just comes off super weird when he tells her that he's alive and that he'll find him. But after this, when Miles gets help from Ganke, who did some internet investigating to where he traced back a location to the supplier of these kid-sized tactical suits, which then gave Miles and Rhino a lead because Rhino's detective skills is garbage. And when it comes to stealth and problem solving, like neither of those is anywhere near his wheelhouse. Which is also why moving forward, Miles has to carry Rhino because that is way more subtle than him just stomping through Brooklyn. And I use the term subtle loosely because Rhino hitching a ride with Spider-Man, like it ain't too much subtle about that. But it's also here where Rhino expresses to Miles that he doesn't necessarily know what it's like to have people look at him and think they know him just because he looks different, which Miles also expresses couldn't be any further from the truth because he's black, Latino, and he's Spider-Man, so he definitely understands it firsthand. But so when they get to the address that Miles was given by Ned, immediately Rhino recognizes it from being a former safe house, or at least that was the use for it many years ago. But when they get here, they pretty much come up with the plan that Miles will first do some stealth recon, but after that, if Rhino doesn't hear from him in 5 minutes, then he'll just barge his way in. And so when Miles takes a look inside, he quickly discovers that these guys have been buying children as child laborers while also taking some type of mysterious inventory, and while doing so, they've been led by Tombstone, who suddenly discovers that he's being watched because street thugs just got their own kind of spider sense. But when this happens, it's very quickly that Miles gets his introduction to another member of Peter Parker's rogues gallery. Because when Tombstone teases Miles with the whole Junior Spider kind of comment, Miles goes to knock him out, but with doing so being unaware that this dude is as hard as a tombstone, and for Miles pulling his punches like he would with a regular person, they take little to no effect with this guy. But fortunate enough, this scuffle exhausted the 5 minutes which Rhino was counting down outside, and he came crashing through for the assist. Kinda. Because when he initially got there, Tombstone was kind of getting the best of him with using the two of them against each other, but when Miles came up with the idea that they actually catch him with the tag team, this idea then caught Tombstone off guard and allowed him to get a solid hit. But even with doing this, Tombstone's able to use one of the children as a distraction to get away, but also with doing this, it leaves Miles and Rhino to find out that a number of the other children are still here, and it leaves them in this predicament to where they have to find out how to get these children to safety, even though the two that they're looking for, that they're just not here. Plus on top of that, there's also the mystery of who sold these kids to Tombstone. That's also this lingering question, and while they're here just trying to piece all of this together and figure out what exactly is their next move, they're then met with the arrival of Captain America, who then tells Miles that he's here to help. Because prior to this point, Cap has been investigating children who have gone missing within the foster care system. But real quick before we go, I want to give a shout out to all the Patreons. And we got some new patrons as well. So shout out to Patrick J, shout out to Soulferks, I hope I'm saying that right. Shout out to Paul S, Greg N, and also shout out to Casman. And once again, thank all of you guys for all of your support. And I'll admit, I'm also super nervous when it comes to saying new names, because not only do I not want to butcher the pronunciation, but there's also this other thing where I think about old episodes of The Simpsons when Bart used to call up Moe at the bar asking for all kind of Seymours and Homers, which didn't exactly sound right when you say them out loud. But that's also why I only do the first letter of the last name. But either way, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about Miles, of course, and let me know if you want to do more Miles videos, and we'll keep the spill spilling. So let me know down in the comments, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.